Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily.
Members of the jury, have you arrived at a verdict?
A verdict is reached as we wind down day 4 of deliberations in the trial for ex-cop Kim Potter. Plus, another case on verdict watch won't see any movement as the jury in the Ghislaine Maxwell federal trial takes a holiday break. Then later, could DNA be the answer to figuring out who killed JonBenet Ramsey? Police say new technology is in from the jury after roughly 27 and a half hours of deliberations. Ex-cop Kim Potter was found guilty of all counts. The former Brooklyn Center, Minnesota police officer shot and killed an unarmed motorist during a traffic stop earlier this year. She faced first and second-degree manslaughter charges. Judge Regina Chu read the verdict in open court on Thursday afternoon.
In the matter of State of Minnesota versus Kimberly Potter, court file number 27 CR 217490, we, the jury, on the charge of manslaughter in the first degree while committing a misdemeanor on or about April 11, 2021, in Hennepin County, State of Minnesota, find the defendant guilty. The verdict on count 2 is we, the jury, on the charge of manslaughter in the second degree, culpable negligence on or about April 11, 2021, in Hennepin County, State of Minnesota, find the defendant guilty.
Now, here are the details of the case. On April 11th, Potter and an officer in training pulled over Daunte Wright for an expired tag. After determining he had a warrant for a weapons charge, they attempted to take Wright into custody. Now, body camera footage shows the struggle between officers and Wright. Potter said she accidentally pulled her firearm instead of her taser when she shot Wright in the chest. Wright's car then sped away, crashed into another car, and he died from his injuries. After the verdict was read, Potter was taken into custody without bail, and her sentencing is set for February. All right, so let's break this down. I'm here with Terry Austin as well as trial attorney Bernardo Villalona. It's great to have you both here. Terry, I have to start. What do you think it was that just tipped this jury over into convicting Potter across the board?
There were a number of factors that tipped that jury over. First of all, she should have recognized the difference between a taser and a gun. They're different colors. They weigh differently. They're on different sides of your body. And we know that the jury asked to see those weapons. So that definitely was a tipping factor. Second of all, she had 26 years of experience. She was trained on a regular basis. And I think the jury said she should have known better. She should have de-escalated that situation. And finally, Jesse, I really do think that the jury recognized you can be held criminally responsible for a mistake because it's either negligence or it was recklessness. And in this case, that jury decided it was both.
But Bernardo, you know what's surprising? I mean, were you surprised that they found her guilty of both charges? A lot of people were predicting maybe a split verdict given the different language of the charges and maybe, the severity of first degree versus second degree.
Well, the jury has spoken, and obviously they were able to get over the hump in terms of the recklessness, manslaughter in the first degree, because they found Kim Potter guilty of both. I will say this, the hang-up was that first count of manslaughter in the first degree, because if you recall, they got the case on Monday. By Tuesday, they sent out a note that possibly they were hung. However, when the verdict was read today, what Judge Chu said is in regards to manslaughter in the first degree, that verdict came today. However, manslaughter in the second degree, the jury had that verdict on Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning. So they also was stuck as the recklessness, but they got it.
Yeah, and it's curious to see if they were kind of stuck up on how severe that first degree charge was. There's more to talk about with Kim Potter, and we're going to get into it later on in the program. But I want to switch gears this now because this week a Michigan appeals court vacated the conviction of a former Michigan State gymnastics coach nearly 2 years after she was found guilty for lying during the Larry NASSAR investigation. On Tuesday, the court determined that the 2018 interviews with KATHIE KLAGES were, quote, inconsequential to the NASSAR investigation, though a judge did not rule on whether KLAGES was telling the truth during those interviews. In February 2020, KLAGES was found guilty on 2 counts of lying to a police officer. 2 gymnasts testified that they told KLAGES about NASSAR's abuse in 1997 when they were just 14 and 16 years old. KLAGES maintained she does not remember the 1997 conversations. From here, the case would go to the Michigan Supreme Court if the state's Attorney General's office wishes to appeal. Over now to an update on a story we first broke to you earlier this week. A Colorado district attorney is asking the court to reconsider a 110-year sentence for a truck driver who caused a deadly crash. The same prosecutor's office that secured a conviction is now asking that 26-year-old Rahel Aguilera Maderos receive a reduced sentence. This comes after the 110-year sentence sparked widespread criticism, as many say the crash was unintentional. In 2019, Aguilera Maderos lost control of his 18-wheeler on the highway. He came upon stopped traffic because of another crash, and instead of taking a ramp, he drove on the shoulder before causing a 28-car pileup. As a result of this, 4 people died and several others hurt. Aguilera Maderos was found guilty of 27 counts, including vehicular homicide, in October. Now, reconsidering the sentence will not affect the conviction. It's only going to give the court more flexibility. A status hearing is set for Monday morning. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, we're going to take a look at the federal sex crimes trial of Ghislaine Maxwell and what's to come as the jury weighs the evidence and decides the fate of the British socialite. But first, Kim Potter found guilty on...
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTubeTV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTubeTV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTubeTV. We put you in the jury box.
And welcome back to Law&Crime Daily, everybody. We're continuing our discussion about the Kim Potter trial out in Minnesota after a jury found the ex-cop guilty of first and second-degree manslaughter. Potter shot and killed Daunte Wright at a traffic stop earlier this year, with her claiming that she mistook her firearm for her taser. But now the question is, what will the punishment be and what will her sentencing look like when it's set for February? Under Minnesota law, Potter would only be sentenced on the top charge. While first-degree manslaughter carries a maximum sentence of 15 years behind bars, Potter, having no previous criminal history, will most likely face a presumptive lower range of imprisonment and will only serve 2/3 of a sentence. However, the prosecution is going to be seeking a higher sentence, and they might cite certain factors in support of that. Ultimately, the sentencing will be up to Judge Regina Chu. So, Terry, based on all of these factors, what do you think a sentence for Kim Potter could look like? And I mean, do you think she's going to get something just like just probation? Because that's what her defense team wants.
No way. They're overreaching there. She actually resulted in the death of someone, so there won't be probation here. And your analysis was perfect, Jesse. The fact that they're going with that higher count of manslaughter, 1 to 15, then they're going to apply the sentencing guidelines, and that's going to take it down. The average is about 7 years. And then with good behavior, and we expect that she will have good behavior, she's going to probably serve about 2/3 of that, which comes down, in my opinion, to about 4.5 years. So I think all in all, she's going to serve time. There's no way she's going to get just probation. I think that's a greedy ask.
So this could change, though, Bernarda, based on what the prosecution presents during a sentencing, like aggravating factors, these kind of Blakely factors. What kind of aggravating factors would work here for the prosecution in this case?
So what the prosecution is going to argue to Judge Chu that Kim Potter abused her position of power. She abused her authority in the sense that she was a police officer when she caused the death of Daunte Wright. So I think that is the most powerful point that they can argue. I don't know if they'll be successful. However, we'll see, because we know from Derek Chauvin's trial that Judge did find that he violated his abuse of power.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what that's going to look like and also whether Kim Potter is going to make a statement during her sentencing. So we'll continue to follow this case because there's still a lot at play there. Now, I want to switch gears because a former Olympic athlete is facing finance related crimes such as money laundering and making false statements to a bank, all about allegedly lying on loan applications to get millions of dollars in coronavirus related relief payments. So this all stems with speed skater Allison Marie Baver, who won the bronze medal as part of Team USA in 2010, I should say, in Vancouver. After retiring from skating 7 years later, she started a film and TV production company, Allison Baver Entertainment. Now, prosecutors say that Baver submitted 8 separate Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, loan applications last April to help her company. She claimed that nearly $5 million. She claimed a nearly $5 million average monthly payroll, but court documents show that in reality, she had no payroll at all. Baver also said that she employed hundreds of people, but prosecutors say that was also a lie. The application led to Baver illegally receiving $10 million in coronavirus relief loans. Federal officials want the former skater to forfeit $9.7 million of the funds. If convicted, Baver faces up to 40 years behind bars. She's set to be arraigned in federal court January 18th and has not yet entered a plea for the charges. And the parents of a teenager charged with shooting and killing 4 of his classmates in November at a Michigan high school are requesting a lower bond. James and Jennifer Crumbly face involuntary manslaughter charges after being accused of allowing their son Ethan to access the gun he allegedly used in the shooting and of failing to pull him from school when they were told about a concerning drawing, namely depicting a gun and a person who appears to have been shot. The pair were believed to have fled before their arrest in early December. The Crumblies have been jailed on a $500,000 bond since then. Their defense attorney asked Wednesday that it be lowered to $100,000. She said they could even be electronically monitored if released. In the court filing, the Crumblies said that the gun which was allegedly used was locked up and that they didn't know their son was any danger to other students. That request is expected to be considered at a hearing January 7th. And coming up on Law&Crime Daily, the jury takes a holiday break as we await a verdict in the federal sex crimes trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. Plus, could a 25-year-old cold case be solved using DNA? The latest from investigators on the John. And welcome back, everybody. Let's head over to New York as the jury adjourns for a holiday break in the sex crimes trial for British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I should tell you, so far the jury has deliberated for about 16 hours. Maxwell, the former girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein, pleaded not guilty to 6 felony sex crimes charges. Over the last few weeks, the jury heard testimony from women who say Maxwell, quote, groomed them for Epstein to sexually abuse. Epstein was charged with similar crimes in 2019, but as you may recall, he was found dead by suicide before his case went to trial. The prosecution's case focused on Maxwell's connection to Epstein. Meanwhile, the defense told jurors that Maxwell is simply a scapegoat for the former financier. During deliberations, the jury has asked for transcripts of testimony from Maxwell's 4 accusers. They also requested notes from an FBI interview with one of the accusers from 2007, which hasn't given much indication on whether they're close to a decision or not. Now, I should tell you that Law&Crime's own Adam Klasfeld has been following this case closely, has actually been in that courthouse, and we caught up with him to learn what the latest is in the jury deliberations.
They have the day off today. They were invited by Judge Nathan to convene today if they chose to. But they turned down that invitation. Their exact words, in fact, in their jury note was, "No, thank you." So that was a quick end to the first week of deliberations. We only had 2 full days of deliberations, adding up to some 16 hours of deliberations. So they have been keeping busy during that short time frame. They have been requesting the transcripts of multiple alleged victims. And as it turns out, as of right before the closing of deliberations yesterday, they requested all 4 accusing witnesses. They got the 4th, that was Kate, the woman testifying under that pseudonym. And they had previously requested the transcripts of the testimony of Annie Farmer, Jane and Carolyn.
And so with that, the jury will reconvene on Monday. Bernardo, let me start with you. Any concern here with the jury taking this break in the middle of deliberations and then coming back to finish the case?
I'm not concerned just because it's the holidays. So you got to think with the holidays, people aren't really focused as to deliberating because look, for example, the Kim Potter jury, they're sequestered and they came back with a verdict because they know it's Christmas. Same thing when we did there was another case that it was doing Thanksgiving, the Ahmaud Arbery case, and they came back right the day before Thanksgiving. So in terms of this jury, they heard so much testimony and there's so much that they need to think about that they themselves were the ones that requested, no, we do not want to come in to continue deliberating, that we request to come in on Monday instead.
Well, getting into the substance of it, Terry, and these jury questions, with the jury taking such a close look at the accuser's testimony, if you were the prosecution, would you be nervous right now?
I would be nervous if I were the prosecution. Actually, I think both parties should be nervous. We understand that after one of the questions asking about the testimony, from reports, the defense attorneys were giving each other high fives. I think that's too early to celebrate. You never know how this is going to go. They're looking at the detailed testimonies of Annie Farmer, Carolyn, Jane, and Kate, all four of those accusers. And there were some inconsistencies. Carolyn, as we mentioned, basically there was an inconsistency in a 2007 interview with the FBI. There were also inconsistencies with Jane in her interviews in 2019 and 2020. So I think the jury is taking a careful look and they're going to determine whether or not their testimony was credible. And I think it could go either way at this point, and neither party should be celebrating while these jurors are asking questions.
All right, maybe it's still early to predict what will happen in Ghislaine Maxwell, but the jury will get some rest and they'll continue their deliberations and we'll follow what happens next. When we come back, investigators are hoping that newer technology will bring new answers to a case that has gone cold for quite some time. Coming up next, the announcement on what could help solve a 25-year-old case. I'm talking, of course, about the murder of JonBenet Ramsey. We'll be back. And welcome back to Law&Crime Daily, everybody. Nearing the 25th anniversary of the murder of JonBenet Ramsey, the Boulder, Colorado Police Department has announced that it may still use DNA technology to help solve this cold case. The 6-year-old's murder shocked the nation back in 1996 when her body was found in the basement of her family home. Just one day after Christmas, Ramsey's parents reported her missing, saying that a ransom note had been left behind. She was later found bludgeoned and strangled. Ramsey's family was ruled out as suspects, and no one was ever charged in the case. In a statement, Boulder police said it has reviewed more than 1,500 pieces of evidence related to the case and followed up on more than 21,000 tips. The department says it, quote, continues to use new technology to enhance the investigation now that it regularly checks DNA evidence for new matches. Now, Bernardo, we are no strangers to DNA solving cold cases, but this kind of DNA, it has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. Walk us through it.
So in regards to this specific type of DNA that they're trying to look into is more of now they want to look into genetic DNA in terms of to see if they can find someone where there's a familiar match. And once they find someone within the familiar match, then they can start looking deeper into what are the connections within the family? What is the family tree to see whether there will be a positive hit as to that DNA. I'll tell you this, DNA has been known to crack cases open. I remember the first homicide that I tried as a homicide prosecutor at the Brooklyn DA's office. It was a cold case from 20 years prior where DNA did not exist. And it was DNA that cracked the case in terms of that the person had, the deceased had the DNA skin cells of the perpetrator underneath her nails. And it was the coming of DNA that helped open up that case and solve it.
Terry, you know what I find odd, though, is that they kind of made a similar announcement of this back in 2016. Why are they announcing this now, this DNA technology, when they haven't even identified a suspect? It feels like something's happening behind the scenes.
I agree. I think what they are doing here, the authorities want the public to know that they're doing something here and that they didn't drop the ball. Remember, this was such a huge case back at the time. It was all over the news. And the authorities were focusing on the parents. And the parents claimed then that they were focusing on the wrong people, that they weren't following credible leads. And so, because of that, this is part of the reason why the case went cold. This is part of the reason why they weren't able to solve the case. So I think the authorities are trying to say, look, we are following this up. We want you to know we have not dropped the ball. And it's a message to the parents. It's a message to the community that they are continuing to follow up on this DNA, even though they don't have a suspect. And the other reason, Jesse, is when they make these types of announcements, they always give a telephone number to contact. They always say what they're doing because they want the public to contact them and tell them about more leads if possible. So it does help them to solve the case, to continuously keep it in the public eye, even though it's 25 years old.
Yeah. It is such an eerie case and still gives people shivers. So if they can find answers, that would be incredible. Bernarda, Terry, thank you so much. Everyone out there, thanks for joining us here on Law&Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.